the 9/11 terror attacks. It was a day that impacted millions, of course, including school students who were in New York classrooms on the day. Joseph Fenity is a journalist who has released previously unheard interviews with one particular high school. TICA News today.
Adrian, thank you so much for having me. A pleasure to be here.
So tell us a bit more about the story of school students and what we've heard from them.
Well, the interesting origin, Adrian, I should tell you, is that this is something that was done 19, 20 years ago now. As a high school student myself, I went out to Ground Zero and to Lower Manhattan to a school, as you mentioned, called Stuyvesant High School, as a school project of my own to interview these students and to kind of hear what I hadn't heard. What I saw back then in 2001 is I saw a lot of people like you and a lot of people like me now, a lot of adults talking to other adults. I did not see was, and I did not hear, was the voice of the youth, the voice of the young people. So that's what I set out to do. And of course, as you know, now at the 20-year marker, I've actually released these recordings, some of them never before released. Now that we're in kind of a digital era, I thought it was time to get these up and online so people from all over the globe could hear this.
So take us into this world. Of course, school students are probably the ones we don't hear quite as much from in terms of the reactions. What have they said and what were their reactions?
It's interesting to have so many people in one building have so many different reactions. The story's the same, of course, but you hear at 911tapes.org, 911tapes.org, what you hear is you hear the different ways all of us react. You will hear in the voice of these students, Adrian, you will hear yourself. You'll find one of those students and you'll say, that's the me in this story. And it's interesting, you know, there was a lot of construction in Lower Manhattan near this high school, Stuyvesant High School, at the time. And so when noises were heard, it was like, well, maybe there's a construction mishap. There's always stuff falling. I think a lot of the kids were trying to justify or reason what a sound could be, because the last thing that it could be is a commercial airliner crashing into a 110-story building down the street. It could be anything but that. So you hear the young people at Stuyvesant High School speaking kind of how this day unfolded, and it's a really special, I think that would be the word, a special firsthand account of just how this day went down in history and in the eyes of young people in New York City.
And just finally, what were the main things that you took from this experience and from some of these conversations? And is it something that school students are now still talking about, or perhaps even taught in schools and within their groups and communities?
What I was able to take away, I don't think it's actively discussed. I do believe it looks like ancient history. I can speak firsthand as someone, you're here digitally, I'm here digitally, and you know, speaking as someone who is used to the digital world, but I had to go back in time quite literally and dig up these analog tapes. It does look like ancient history. When you look at the footage, it doesn't always seem and feel as real as it was. Time has marched on, and that's another reason 911tapes.org is so important to me. My big takeaway, Adrian, as you asked, with these students, I was really inspired. There's nothing stronger than a young person, right? Get to your 30s and 40s, and it's like, oh no, here we go again. Here's another day. But these young people, Adrian, they were resilient, they were strong, and listening to those old interview pieces from New York City 20 years ago, it's been awe-inspiring to be reminded of how strong those of us who can carry on do carry on with such bold courage. It was really amazing.
Yeah, it's a beautiful point. It's you've got to hold on to the youth in so many ways and try and keep that within you, because yeah, young people are quite incredible, strong, resilient, as you say. Great to chat, Joseph. Thank you so much for your insight today on TICA News.